Welcome, as it is another edition of Celebrate 98, brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company. I'll tell you more about Tennessee Cider Company. It's just fantastic. I'll start off with that. Go to tncidercompany.com. Use the promo code HAT for free swag with any purchase, and you can have it delivered pretty much anywhere in the United States of America. With Fred White, I'm Dave Hooker, and joined by a very special guest. Let me let you introduce this guy, because you guys know each other pretty well, played in the same backfield, one of the best backfields I've ever seen, completely complemented one another, and have remained friends throughout these 25 years. And the bonds are strong everywhere, but in particular with you two guys, it feels really strong. So, Fred, you introduce our guest today.
You know, we have one of the best to ever do it at Tennessee when it comes to playing the defensive back position. Dwayne Goodrich out of Oak Lawn, Chicago. There we go. Southside, baby, Illinois. And I don't say just friend. And this is my brother. That's all the way, 100% my brother. If he ever called me, I know he know I'm on my way. If I can get there, I'm there. If I can't get there, I'm trying to figure out how to get there. Likewise. So It's always been that way. And, you know, it's always going to be that way. That right there is my brother. We went through some things in life that, man, a lot of people don't know. But, you know, it's real. It's 100% real. One of the best to ever do it. Number 23, the guy who picked off the interception, pick six against Florida State.
Yep, that
was Dwayne Goodrich, man. I call him D Good or Goody.
That's thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Dwayne, can you believe it's been 25 years?
Man, no, not really. Not really. I sit there and think about it. I feel like some days it feel like it was just a couple weeks ago, and then sometimes you feel like it was ages ago. And especially talking to the kids now, they don't, so yeah, kind of feels that way. So it's a little bit of mixed emotion. So yeah, you kind of get the feeling like, yeah, it's been a long time, but some days it feels like it's nostalgic. Feel like it was just yesterday.
Fred, you mentioned the interception and the Fiesta Bowl. We're going to touch on a lot of topics, but that one in particular was obviously such a huge play. And I'm curious, because I obviously want to get Dwayne's perspective, but let me start with you. What did you see on that play? How did it unfold? And how confident were you that Dwayne was going to be able to jump it and make a play?
Well, throughout the year, man, one thing people don't understand, people just think sometimes that, he's the great athlete, and he made a great athlete play. Hey, man, we also pay attention to video. We watch film. We understand tendencies and things like that. And I knew that from watching film and those type of things before that game coming up, that he was definitely going to be ready. And the one thing we always knew, hey, your best receiver, we got somebody who can lock him down. We're going to put him over there. He was our cover corner. That was the guy we knew that if you were on that side, we ain't got to worry about that side as much. He's going to take care of business over there. So confidence, absolutely. We knew he could do what he had to do.
Dwayne, what do you remember about the interception that you took to the house?
Oh, man, just like Fred said, I remember the study, like film study. One thing, if I had a lot of time to film study, I was going to pick out a few plays that I knew that I could jump the route. And that was one of the plays when he motioned over from the short side to the wide side. That's when they wanted to get Peter Warrick in space with the ball in his hands in space. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I was terrified to let Peter Warrick get the ball in his hands. He was dominant with the ball in his hands, but I knew that was one of the few plays that I had where I said I was gonna take a jump on it. I let Dion know, like, hey, if they run this play, Coach Ramsey, they jump it. If you see it, jump it. So I knew exactly what I'm like, oh man, I know he's not running this out route from this wide, from this, tight split like that. So I kind of knew what route it was, and I just stuck my hands out, hoping it stuck. And when I realized they stuck to my hand, I'm like, oh yeah, game changer. So
you thought game changer even before you started running?
Dave, I don't even know if Coach Fulmer even remember this story, but he asked me before the game if I had a good game, was I turning pro? You know what I mean? So, like, literally after that touchdown, I looked at him like I'm gone, like I was gone, like on the sideline, like I'm gone. Like, and then I got hurt later in the game, so like he said, at least I got you back. I think I got you back for another year. So it was a little play for banner going back and forth and that stuff too. But no, I knew that was a big game, a big play, and to try to give us a head up, a lead, and give us a chance to, get a leg up on the ball game. So I knew that it was a big play.
Dave, a lot of people, like we talk about film study. We played a lot of video games back in the day, and we always hung out together. When you talk about the DBs, myself, Mickey Allen, Gerald Griffin, man, we all just kind of hung out together on a regular basis. Most of the team hung out, but like we'll be at their apartment. If the video game went on, we had film playing, and it would just be on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just different cut-ups or different stuff just be on, whoever we were playing against. And I remember, Dwayne might not remember this, but I remember we were at their house, and we were kind of just hanging out, enjoying ourselves. And I remember somebody was like, wait a minute. They playing bump and run.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally watched every game they played all year. And this is starting it over. And they're playing against North Carolina State. And we watched every film on them. We had seen not one team bump and run them all season. We go back and we missed it. Like, dang, wait a minute. That's bump and run. So we started watching it and watching the film. We sitting there watching the film and like, they actually kind of shut him down. That was the worst game he had all season.
Mm-hmm.
It was the worst game he had all season.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy because it was like, wow, we got something. We went to meetings that next day and looked at Coach Ramsey like, man, D Good was like, I'm gonna press him.
Yeah.
Let me show you why I said that. And we watched that film and he was like, that's the reason why I love Coach Ramsey so much was because he was like, okay, if you see it, you better be right. But our whole game plan, I think, changed at that moment. And we realized, man, we got something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And for those that don't remember, we're talking about Peter Warwick, one of the best playmakers of the 90s. I think he was a two-time consensus All-American. And Dwayne, you mentioned earlier, he certainly had your respect.
Oh, yeah. Peter Warwick. Peter Warwick is video. Peter Warwick was our generation's version of Reggie Bush. So, you put Reggie Bush, Peter Warwick, Desmond Howard. These guys in the category. P-Dub is in that category. So, yeah, he definitely had our respect in that film room in that secondary room. So no, we didn't take that for lightly. It was definitely me and Peerless, that whole time leading up to that, me and Peerless really worked hard, man. We worked hard and we unleashed the dogs and we almost came to blows leading up to that. That's how intense it was, because we knew that this was our chance to put ourselves and put Tennessee on the map and on a national stage like that. So we were locked in and focused that whole leading up to that Fiesta Bowl. Like me and Peerless going one-on-ones. It was a dog fight. It was a dog fight every day leading up to that. So yeah.
Dwayne, describe the difference when you're playing a guy that has that much quickness, ability, and just he's such a playmaker. Bump and run, for the average fan that might not exactly understand what that is. When you're playing bump and run on a guy like that, how challenging can that be?
It's real tough, but you got to just go back to the technique and go back to what you're taught, and then you got to lean on Al Wilson, Darwin Walker, Sean Ellis. Ron Green. You got Jeff Coleman. So Corey Terry, I can go down. That made my job so much easier because I knew I only had to cover for 3 or 4 seconds at the most, and that ball was coming out with the aggressive defensive play we had. So you'd be big and fast and physical at the line of scrimmage, and just try to stay with them. And I knew that front seven was going to get there.
Yeah, Fred, and I would think too that the trust that you guys had amongst one another allowed Dwayne to be more aggressive with you and Dion, mostly Dion over top.
Man, we had our own signals to where, we're in a game and he said, hey man, if I slap my leg, I'm jumping it. Just know that, right?
Yeah.
So you would look and, before the snap, we always look and see if he got something. If he got something, he's telling me I'm jumping it.
Mm-hmm.
I got to play over the top. I got to make sure I got him over the top because he's jumping the inside route or the out route or whatever. But that was stuff that you knew on the field. I think these guys now play the game just the way the coach coaches it. Our defensive back Coach Ramsey, gave us freedom to be able to say, hey, look, I see something. They come back out in this formation, I'm jumping it. Okay, bet. I got you over the top. We knew that. Dion knew the same things. Hey, man, if I see that tight end blocked down, I'm coming down here full speed. Make sure you got me over the top. Because if they go play action, I'm done with it. Yeah. But you knew those type of things just because we were so good with each other.
But I think a lot of that comes from the fact that we took a lot of struggles. That UCLA game in '97, it was 90-something degrees outside, and Terry Fair got hurt, Steve Johnson got hurt. So you had me and Gerald, young pups out there, just getting baptized. Cade McNair, we struggled. We barely hung on for that, but that's baptism by fire. Deion Grant came in that game as a freshman to the point where we're getting baptized by fire. So that allowed to build that chemistry to where I knew where Deion was going to be at. Deion knew, okay, maybe in this Florida game, I know that I'm gonna bait him a little bit for that little seam route that he picked it off with one hand. I mean, that was by design. So it was a lot of film study, and it was a lot of trust and a lot of bonding, and us knowing where the other one is supposed to be. You know, so it was a lot of trust there, a lot of trust.
We knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. We did know that. We knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. They knew one thing: if I get run action, I'm going to be late on the pass. I'm coming straight.
Yeah, Fred, a C-ball hit ball. C-ball hit ball. Yeah. So Fred was built like a linebacker at Tennessee. So Fred had that linebacker mentality at Tennessee. So he'd be running drills with Al and Raynock and Emo. And that wasn't keep me over there with the DBs over there in the cover line. So,
and you know, the one thing that made it easy though, like he was just talking about, we had Deion Grant in the middle of the football field, man. He was gonna go get it. He gonna help you over the top. He was really good at that. And we had a defensive line that was so aggressive, it made it easier for the jump stuff or play the game that we played, play it how we played it, you know? It made it easier.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to with Deion. At what point did you realize, Dwayne, that you could be more aggressive as a corner because you had such a rangy free safety that may be able to cover if you made a mistake?
Oh, I came in there aggressive. I was
going to be. It didn't matter who was safety.
It didn't matter who was there. I was aggressive with Corey Gaines out there. So, and just for me, I trusted my speed. I mean, I knew I was a high 4.3 guy at 195 pounds. So I knew there wasn't too many guys that were going to run by me. And I knew the work. Like I said, I knew the front seven that we had. I knew the style of defense we played. The quarterback wasn't going to hold the ball too long. So I knew, so I was real confident. I always wanted to be a person that made plays. I wanted to be known as a game changer, to help my team out and do anything I can to get on the field and make the play, get the turnover, and do anything. So if that meant a fumble recovery on special teams my freshman year, anything, I'm trying to do anything to get that turnover. That's just the way that I've always played the game. And when I got to Tennessee, there was Coach, like Fred said, Coach Ramsey gave me the freedom, hey, if you see something and you believe it, jump it. But hey, you can't jump it and be on dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
You better be right. That's what he used to tell us, hey man, you better be right.
Yeah, you better be right. So and I was right. I was right more times than not. So
you were, and that was definitely your most memorable interception. And I find it so interesting that you guys found that as much through film study as athleticism. Is there another interception that maybe it wasn't as big because it wasn't a national championship game that you look back at and you're most proud of?
Georgia game, 1998 game, over the shoulder catch when Quincy was throwing the ball away. And I don't know if you know, Quincy Carter's my cousin. So
I didn't know that.
We're blood cousins, and he was like, "Cuz, I was just trying to throw the ball away," and I'm like, "Hey, I just ran, and all I did was just run and just trying to show off my speed." And then I really just stuck my hands out there, and the ball just stuck. I'm like, "Oh man, oh snap, I caught this thing," and do all that. And they joked me because I got tackled by the offensive tackle on the way back. But look at the play. I ran 100 or something yards. I was tired. So I was just looking to get tackled on the run back. But that was probably my favorite interception.
Well, let me ask both of you guys this. So I was talking to Philip Fulmer, and He said that he thought the Georgia game is when everything kind of gelled and truly believed each other, which surprised me a little bit because you could have pointed to the Florida game or even the Arkansas game later in the season. Fred, I'll start with you being a Georgia guy. How big was that Georgia game? And then we'll get Dwayne's take.
Man, I think we gelled together. I didn't play much in the Georgia game. I got hurt in the Auburn game the week before.
Okay.
So I had a knee contusion and didn't get a chance to play in the Georgia game. I played like maybe 2 snaps and that was it. But I think defensively, we stood up against Auburn. Jamal Lewis went down. We go to the locker room and find out he has tore his ACL. And he got a knee injury. We don't know exactly what it is, but we know he's not going to play the rest of the game. And I remember going out in that second half and shutting Auburn down. And we played tough defense. I mean, we had to win the game, basically, because offensively we were kind of distraught. Yeah. We didn't have Jamal Lewis in there. I think that was the beginning of what we were going to be like defensively. And then against Georgia, we were picked to lose the game. Mm-hmm. And I never forget just watching how fast we really were on the football. Being able to sit back on the sideline. I wanted to play in that game because it was at Georgia and it was Georgia. Yeah. But being able to sit back on the sideline and watch, man, we looked so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, dominant. And it made you realize, like, hey, man, we are a really good football team.
Yeah. Now, see, now I'm glad. So it's funny. So, like, I have a different take on that. Like, June, like that year, that's when that was the first game we played after Jamal got hurt. And I felt like everybody, I mean, maybe Fred would, but I felt like, man, what do we have? Because, I knew Travis were good, but I didn't know that they were that good, and we didn't know what we had. So it's kind of like, all right, what are we going to do? Georgia just came off, I want to say they just came off beating LSU. Quincy had a phenomenal game because he was a freshman that year because he went and played baseball. And they were I think Georgia was ranked 7 and we were ranked 3 on the road. And everybody saying, like, this is the game that Georgia's going to finally beat Tennessee. And it was a hype game. And I remember we went out there, that defense went out there and held them to 3 points. I mean, kudos to the secondary. We held Champ Bailey to one catch for 8 yards. So that's Champ Bailey and Peter Ward, they held to 1 catch. So,
it's pretty strong.
Yeah. So that's, so I that Georgia game, I knew, like, after that Georgia game, I'm like, hey, this is ours to lose. Like, nobody else could beat us. But, it's football. Like, so the year before that Nebraska game, when the ball kicked off the Missouri guy's foot, like, you just knew something was going to – I didn't know it was going to be Arkansas game, but you just knew we were going to have some kind of roadblock. But even then, I wasn't even thinking about national championship then. I mean, because I remember the ladder thing we had in the locker room, one game at a time. Like, we weren't even allowed to think that far ahead. I mean, I think that team was special because we weren't even allowed to think that far ahead.
I thought that far ahead.
Yeah, Fred called national title every year, I think.
Yeah, no, I didn't at all.
Started every season, we winning it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know because I didn't know what we had. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because we still had a bunch of talent. But we had so many new starters coming in and do all this, so we just didn't know exactly what we had. So I was a little nervous. So each game, for me, each week surprised me a little bit more. It did. Even as a team, even going to practice, I'm like, man, it surprised me each week, every more and more. Like,
Well, David Cutcliffe told me, and he said that spring, of course, that was the year after Peyton Manning. For those that know that.
Yeah.
So that spring and that preseason camp, it was pretty tough to get a first down against you guys. So on one side, you got to be like, we're pretty good. But on the other side, you're like, this offense could struggle.
Oh, I thought we were going to struggle on the offense. I mean, yeah, we handled T kind of rough in that spring ball. I mean, they took the green jerseys off the quarterbacks, so all quarterbacks were live because they wanted to toughen the team up from the Nebraska game, in the Orange Bowl. So that whole spring was about toughness. They preached toughness. So all the stuff that we did the year previous, it was intensified going into that 98 season. I remember, like, 98 going out, they had me at the 13th ranked cornerback. I remember Stuckey saying, you need to do 13 reps for everybody that's ranked ahead of you. And that was our ongoing thing. In certain sets, I would do 13 reps and count out the people in front of me. So it was intense, man. Like, no, it was like that Tennessee run was special. Like the things we did in that facility over there, and the grind we put in. Like a lot of people don't understand that it was a true grind. Like, nothing over there came easy, and that was something like for me coming from Chicago. That was something that I was used to it in high school, but that was a different ball game to me.
Stuckey, the longtime trainer who you're referring to, and how in the world did you get from Chicago to Knoxville?
Coach Ramsey. Tennessee came in late in recruiting in October, and Coach Ramsey was from East St. Louis, and he called me on the phone one day. I had no idea about Tennessee, just knew about the colors. I knew some of the players and stuff like that because growing up a Bears fan, we had Jeremy Lincoln and some other guys, Willie Gault, some other guys and stuff. So I knew about Tennessee, but I wasn't a Tennessee historian. So when I I remember getting a little media guy. I'm like, Tennessee, all this orange and white. I'm like, didn't know that much about it. But then once I started talking to Ramsey, doing some research, I noticed that all the guys in the secondary, Deron Jenkins from St. Louis, Terry Fair from Arizona, Ray Austin from Oklahoma, Jason Parker from Texas, Fred White from Georgia. So I knew they didn't play favorites. So they played anywhere. So I knew for me coming from Chicago, I knew that I would get an opportunity to play. Like as opposed to going to Miami, everybody on the roster was from Florida. They don't have to play a kid from Chicago. But I knew at Tennessee I would get a chance because Coach Ramsey was from Illinois, and they didn't play favorites. They played everybody. They played everybody from everybody across the country. So that's what drew me to Tennessee.
Curious where you would have ended up had it not been Tennessee. First, it's 30 seconds for Tennessee Cider Company, and we'll be right back with Celebrate 98. He's Dwayne Goodrich with Fred White. I'm Dave Hooker. 30 seconds. Then where would Dwayne Goodrich have gone had it not been Tennessee?
Michigan. I was going to Michigan with Charles Woodson. I was going to be the corner on the opposite side of Charles Woodson.
Dwayne, you didn't let me do the tease.
Oh, my bad.
Why would it have been Michigan in 30 seconds?
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Okay, so why would it have been Michigan?
Oh, my bad.
It's all good. Why would it have been Michigan? And you and Charles Woodson might have been pretty good together.
I think so. No, I think Michigan. I went to camp there, and I went up there a couple times, like just because it was 3 hours away from the house in Chicago. So I spent a lot of time up to Michigan. Knew a bunch of the players on the team, bunch of the coaching staff and stuff like that. But then when Tennessee came in, and I had a chance to go to the SEC, do something different. There weren't a lot of guys from my area that went to the SEC, and I just wanted to stand alone and really do something different. And I fell in love with East Tennessee on my visit, and committed on my visit there. So it was, once I got to campus, it was over with. Yeah.
What did Michigan? I'm curious what Michigan coaches said, because they probably thought they had you, especially if Tennessee didn't make a run till October.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I still talk to Brady Hoke. I went out to San Diego State and took my son out there to camp a couple weeks ago. So Brady and I are still real good friends. So he still talks about one of the ones that got away. So.
Gotcha. What is it? Does your son play ball now?
Yes. Yeah. He's going into a senior year now. So he's exciting times.
Is he being recruited at this point? What position does he play?
Yeah, he plays safety and receiver. He has some interest in schools. He has to go out and have a big year this year to get back on the radar and stuff. He had some injuries the last couple of years and stuff, but he's a legit 4'3" kid, about 5'10", 185. So it's about time for him to start putting everything together.
Is he more like Fred or Dwayne or Dion? Fred or Dion?
Whew. Don't get me in trouble right now. Don't get me in trouble right. Neither. Shit. Excuse me, language. Neither. He got a long way to go to be in a conversation with Fred or Dion.
He's a different type of athlete, though.
Yeah.
He definitely got speed.
Yeah.
He can play the game.
Fred, you said before, and players have told me in the 98 team, you were one of those that were the quickest to put your arm around somebody, bring somebody into the fold. It's got to be even more important with a guy that's coming all the way from Chicago. You talk about a culture shock. I mean, that's a different area. Talk about how you guys met and how you guys started bonding even before you won a national title.
So you got to look at a few things. Deron Jenkins was getting ready to be a first-round draft pick, we thought. He ended up being a second-round pick. And then you bring in Terry Fair from Arizona. Bring in Steve Johnson was another top corner out of the state of Georgia. And I come in and I'm a top 3 corner in the country. And the next year you bring in the player of the year in defense and the number 1 corner in the country in Dwayne Goodrich. Didn't know I was moving to safety until afterwards, but I just remember when he came to visit, they were like, he's the number 1 corner in the country. We're like, man, we need football players. We didn't care about if you're really a good football player, you're confident in yourself, you don't care about somebody coming in. You care about trying to get other guys on your team that we gonna stack our deck. That means we got good football players on it. And I remember when he came on this visit, we all hung out together. Deron Jenkins, Terry Fair, Steve Johnson, myself, and Dwayne. We all hung out with him. We all, had a good time and kicked it with him. When he came on campus, we were cool from the first day. Always have been. And, we were DBs, man. And by the time he came on campus, I had moved to safety anyway. But we were DBs. We were young, still learning the game, trying to make plays. And that's all it was about. Just working your butt off and trying to make some football plays. And the guys who were making plays, we all hung out together. But the guys who were making plays, we probably hung out with each other more,
Yep.
Dwayne, what can you tell us about a young Fred White back in the day? 19-year-old Fred White. We've spent a couple of evenings together, but probably not to the extent of which you guys have. But what can you tell us about a young Fred White back in the day?
The most passionate and loyal teammate, one of the most passionate and loyal teammates that I've ever had. He's gonna give you the shirt off his back if you ask it. He's gonna go to war. He's gonna go to battle for you and do anything that you need him to do within his power, within reason. And sometimes he'll go without reason and do all that. But Fred is gonna have your back 110% no matter what. I mean, and young Fred, old Fred, when I came home and I needed a place to stay and get back in school, Fred had a couch in a 1-bedroom. And 1 bedroom, he catch this couch and get back on your feet. So he's a brother to me, a family member, and do all that. So young Fred White did the same thing old Fred White is still doing to this day.
Oh, middle-aged Fred White.
True that. Middle-aged.
We're all middle-aged. We're not old yet.
Middle-aged. Man, my kids call me old now, so sometimes I embrace it. You know what I mean? But I still feel young.
Yeah, I have to ask my son to change the channel on the television because it's too complicated for me. But with you, when you look back at, because there is a great story when you came back to Tennessee, you guys kind of challenged each other to go back to college, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, for me, it was big for me. I mean, it was big for me coming from prison that I wanted to go back to school. And when I came back, talked to Brad Pendergrass, he was, adamant. When I came back to the Alabama game, I want to say it was 2012 to the Alabama game. Brad Pendergrass was adamant, hey, get back in school, do this. He's like, I can help you get back in school. And I didn't have a place to stay. Didn't really know what I was going to do, how I was going to get on my feet. Fred, like I told you, Fred had that couch for me. And at the same time, Fred wasn't in school. And I'm like, hey, man, if I'm in school, like, why are you not in school? Like, what's going on? And he was like, some things were going on and, it transpired that I can't get back in, blah, 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 something there. And we just, we stayed on and talked to the right people. And, Fred ended up hooking it with the right people. But I was on the couch every day. I'm going to class and, doing my thing. And he saw me doing my thing for about 4 or 5 months. And next thing you know, it worked out for him. And he was in school the next semester. And we were able to finish up together, able to graduate the same time together. So it's an amazing story. And Fred will tell you the story, man. We were rubbing 2 wooden nickels together to get a TV. We bought, $400 open box TV. We had to, hey, man, I got 200. You got 200. So it was a tough time. And this is as adults, getting on our feet. And, so, that's a humbling story. But those are stories that, shape the people that we are, shape the things that we went through, in our upbringing, in our childhood, the trials and tribulations, the toughness that we learned over at UT. And do all that to not fight, to learn to run through a brick wall, to be able to trust your brother and stuff. So Fred and I's bond is way beyond a football helmet or anything like that. That's a true brother, So it's real.
Fred, do you think you would have gone back to school if not for Dwayne being there, coming back and going to school?
I don't know if I could have got back in. Being real, I don't know if I had I didn't have the strength to go and talk to some of the people that I needed to talk to. And I think I got to say this, man. I got to give him some love. Shout out to Chris Fuller, man. That's
Shout out, Chris. Love you, dog. Love you, dog.
Love you, bro. Thank you. He's just retired too, by the way. So congratulations on that as well. But yeah, I got to give Chris Fuller some respect and some love. I appreciate him for what he did to help me get back in.
And he was an associate AD at the time. So what did he do for you?
For me. He went to bat for me, and he did some things, man. That I'll keep that between me and him. It'll probably go in my book. But he's I got mad love and respect for him and always will because of what he did to help me out. Back to what we were talking about here. So I don't think I would have. I didn't have that. I had gotten to the point where it was like, you know what?
He was comfortable, Dave. He was comfortable in the role that he was at. He was comfortable in the role that he was at.
Yeah, but I'll say this. I remember it snowing in Knoxville, and where I lived, there was this big old hill, and we would go out on the balcony and watch these cars try to go up that hill, and be like, man, he ain't gonna make it. He's not gonna. And walking to the gas station to go get stuff, to come back home and eat it. It was just like we had to live like college students. We were really college students all over again. And
you're how old at this point? What year is this?
2013.
Yeah, 2013. Yeah,
2013. Yeah.
So it's 13 years later, man, that we're back in college, man, and we are real college students. And I remember, some days just up all night studying and, encouraging each other. Hey, man, what time you got class? Let's go. And sitting in front of the class. It was just, it was a different time period for us and it was different because we had already went to school. We were the older guys in class. Yeah. We did have a perspective on life. And man, most people who saw us thought, man, they were living, man, y'all living the life. And we were sitting there thinking to ourselves, like he said, it
was a struggle. It was a struggle. It was definitely a struggle.
Yeah, it was
something that we both needed to do because we had other people and especially for me coming from the background that I had going to prison, doing all that. Like I wanted to get back on campus because I didn't want to come back around. I was scared to come back around, how people would view me and do all that. So that was big to come back around, be accepted, be back on campus, get back into the graces with the football program, the university, and just show that, Tennessee is going to still have love for you no matter what you do, and just represent I went to school, represented the football program still in a positive light, represented my time era and stuff in a positive light, represented the 98 team in a positive light. So that was important to me.
Yeah. And to walk across that stage, man, when we graduated with Dwayne and Jermaine Copeland, and man, I remember walking across the stage. We walked through one behind the other. It was Dwayne, then it was me, then it was Jermaine Copeland. When they called our names out, it meant something to us differently because what we had to go through to get to where we had to get to, And it was like, it was years later than what it should have been, but it happened. But also, I want to say this. A lot of people used to tell me, oh, man, it's great, man, I'm glad what you did for Dwayne. I'm like, man, y'all have no idea what he did for me. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what he did for me. He actually taught me how to do a lot of different things, how to know my worth, how to understand my work, and understanding the things that I was doing were important. I didn't know that. Nobody ever told me that, but he did. And I appreciated it because I had never been told that.
Thank you, man.
It's pretty phenomenal. And for those that don't know, you referenced time in prison, and one of the things that was heartbreaking. I remember talking to you about it years ago. You actually didn't want to have contact with any of the players because you were ashamed at one point about what had happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, going through something like that, not being, I was never a bad person, but, just putting myself in a horrible situation and, took 2 lives and do all that. That's something you can never forget about and do all that, and something that, you have to go on. Unfortunately, I was able to go on with my life and try to figure out how to live and do all that stuff. So no, at the time, I didn't want any help from anybody. I didn't even know how to help myself. You know what I'm saying? So it was a lot of things that I had to go through mentally in order to grow myself, in order to be the person that I am now.
Do you realize how mentally strong you are, Dwayne, to overcome that? That's something that could easily ruin somebody's life. I just want to say kudos. We've all done things we regret, but to overcome that and be so mentally strong, man, just salute.
Thank you. It's tough. I mean, I have my days, but like I said, the beauty about it, I have a strong brotherhood. I mean, that I talk to Fred every single day. You know what I'm saying? I talk to T. I talk to T all the time. I used to talk to Mickey. Mickey is big time now with a full-time AD gig doing big things. But I mean, I still talk to my brothers every day. And one thing that I've learned through everything that I've been through and everything that I've gone through, don't be ashamed to talk. I'll call Fred and tell Fred I'm having a bad day. You know what I'm saying? And I've learned to accept that and, reach out to guys when I'm having a bad day and not try to compartmentalize and keep everything inside and stuff like that. And that's made me so and that's where the strength comes from, is just leaning on my family and leaning on I call Fred family, man, leaning on my family, my Tennessee family, my blood family, all that stuff. And just knowing that I have a strong support system allows me to be strong like that. But it's tough. It's tough.
And Dave, and everybody has issues. There ain't no perfect person in this world. So we all have those. There's some days that I'm on it, and I had to call Dwayne, and he's one of the only people that can actually calm me down. Him, my sister, maybe my mom, and maybe Al. Those are the only people I can actually talk to, and they'll talk me off that ledge. You know what I mean? And I've had some phone calls with Dwayne. It's like, man, I'm frustrated. I'm mad, and this, he may make a joke and make me laugh. It's a whole different perspective at that point. But logically,
Fred, I could start just calling you and save a little money on my therapist bill.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And one thing about Dave, Fred is gonna always answer no matter what, no matter who called him. Fred is gonna always answer his phone or always get back to you within an hour. I've seen Fred talk to 55 people about Tennessee stuff in 2-3 hours. I'm like, why? What are you talking about this much? But he's always been that guy. He's been that liaison from the 80s era, the 90s era, the 2000s, 2010s. The guys is playing now. Like, Fred is that guy that bridged that gap. Like, Fred is an important piece of the puzzle of UT sports, man.
Yeah, very important. Yes. If you guys want to, let's turn it back to football for a second, because I thought that I had heard every single story about the Arkansas game and the Arkansas fumble. I thought I would talk to everybody from the Colemans to the Whites to the Ratliffs to everybody, but I heard a story before we started the show today that I'd never heard before, and that's you all go as, I don't know if it's a group or one at a time or is it the secondary, and you go over and basically dare Houston Nutt to throw the ball, which he did, which resulted in the infamous fumble in the Arkansas game. Just tell me about that. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
A few plays before that, they ran a bootleg, and he kept the ball. And Dwayne almost knocked, if he had stayed up, Dwayne would knock his head off. We talked about that not too long ago. Corey Terry is chasing him. And we're sitting there thinking, man, they just ran a bootleg, but they didn't throw the ball, right? So when they called the timeout right before that play, we go over to, everybody else goes to our sideline.
Yeah, so we didn't have to huddle. We didn't have to huddle up.
We didn't have to stutter. We stayed on the football
field. So that was my thing, Dave. I don't know if a lot of people knew that. I never had to huddle.
Yeah.
So I used to always talk to the opposing coaches. So I would nag the opposing offensive coordinator, whoever's on the sideline. I mean, all game. So I was over on the sideline talking all game. So Fred came over there this time with me and started talking with me. That's how he ended up over there with me.
So you're trash talking the coaches?
Oh yeah. It was
Listen,
brutal.
man,
It was brutal.
That's awesome.
Houston Nutt gave us this look like, you know how you could tell somebody he hears you. He hears us, and he kind of just looked over at us, and he just smiled. And I'm sitting there thinking, he better not throw this ball. Because if we throw it, it's going to get picked off. We're going to do everything we can to get it picked off, or we're going to sack the quarterback, one or the other. Next play, they run a doggone bootleg, and he fumbles. And I remember, I'll never forget when I got to the sideline, I'm sitting there thinking, he actually was getting ready to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Lost
run. Yeah, he wasn't going to throw it. Yeah, he wasn't going to throw it.
Do you
He
think
probably
you all
would try to do
goaded?
the same thing he did a few plays before?
Yeah.
Well, do you think you all goaded him into doing something different? Because the smartest thing to do is hand it off and let dive, right? And just let it.
Yeah.
That's the smartest thing to do.
But I think it just worked out. It just worked out like that for us. It just that was just beautiful though. It was beautiful.
It was beautiful. But here's the thing. I remember the defense we called. It was bear might shoot.
Yeah.
I'm in the box. I'll never forget it, because that means if you run a bootleg, you're gonna get sacked anyway, because we're blitzing wide and up the middle. You don't have a chance to run a bootleg in that defense. You're gonna run right to the defensive end if you bootleg. If he does not fumble that ball, Corey Terry makes a sack.
Yeah.
Go watch the film. I'm watching. I'm sitting there thinking, I know he didn't. I'm watching him roll out, and I'm like, I know he didn't.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the ball is on the ground. It's like, man, he's gonna get sacked either way it goes. That was a dumb play call. Period.
It was. It really was.
Well, whether or not Dwayne, I want to get back to you trash talking coaches, because I think that's awesome. So whether or not you affected him, do you think there were times at Tennessee by trash talking other coaches, perhaps play callers?
Okay, the offensive coordinator from Arkansas, 98, he was at Ole Miss in 97.
Okay.
97 game, I took a pick six back on a 3rd and 10. Arkansas game, that same game, he was like, I'm like, hey, throw another one over here. He was like, no, we're going over on 34 the rest of the game, Steve Johnson. So Arkansas game, 98 game, he was like, I'm like, they threw one over there and I missed it. He was like, we're not messing with you the rest of the game. We're going on Steve Johnson's side. He was like, we're going to 34 side. So it was playful banner that I had with a lot of coaches throughout my time there. It was a lot of fun. So I think I definitely got a couple coaches' head. I do.
And let me say this too, Dave. Most impressive when it comes to like knowing who the coaches were, who the players were, where they came from, what they did, like what they did really good. Dwayne was good at that. He knew all the offense coordinators. Man, remember he was at this place and he used to run this offense and he did this and this was who he had. Like,
this is before Google, Dwayne. Did you know that?
Man, I studied media guides. I did.
Yeah.
I studied media guides back then. I really did. Man. I had to do anything to get an edge. I knew about people's names. Like a lot of people don't know Sean Ellis's real name. So it's a Toby Champion. Hey, man, I know a lot of them early media guys used to tell a lot of information about guys.
It did. So Dwayne was good at telling us offense that they run, offensive coordinator, where the players came. My job was we already talked about this. My job was to find out who their girlfriends were, what their mama name was, what their child name was. And that's my trash talking. Dwayne talking to him about offensive plays. I'm talking about trash talking. I'm just trash talking, period. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to get under their skin. But we always had, every week Dwayne would come in. Man, he made practice so much easier. He would come in the DB room and say, hey, man, we got deep ball today. Like, how did you know that? How you know we got deep balls today?
Now, you know T was my roommate now. T Martin was my roommate.
Okay.
So I knew what the offense was doing because I knew what T was doing every day. So I knew what they were. So if the offense was working on quick game, that means defense, 3-step drop, jump. I mean, we're jumping everything. So you got to cheat a little bit, man. You got to cheat a little bit.
You ain't trying.
You got to cheat a little bit, man. Hey, man, Peerless, Marcus Nash, Joey Kent, Dante, Eric Parker. Those dudes were too good to not have a script already in hand. I needed to know what they were doing every day when I went out to practice.
Well, I got to ask you this, since he was pretty good trash talker in his own right. Did you ever talk trash to Steve Spurrier, who was essentially the offensive coordinator at Florida?
Yeah, and I got sent to the bench in '98 after I gave up that touchdown.
Dwayne, we were doing so good, and then I blew it. I went a little too far.
Hey, I got to keep it real. I got sent to the bench, and then I got that '98 game, the '98 game against Florida. I didn't play the rest of the game after I gave up that touchdown to Travis McGriff. Oh, look, I didn't play the rest of that game.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I got my ankle. Remember, it was my ankle, but no, I mean, whatever it was, I got benched and didn't come back in the game. Whatever it was.
I did not remember that.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember the touchdown, though.
Yeah, remember they had a long touchdown. And I didn't come back in. They put Gerald in.
But hold on. You know what's crazy? Dion caught a cramp coming across and try to get the interception.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch the video, he's holding his hamstring and hopping across the field. And had that not happened, I don't think there's not a touchdown. It's probably an interception. Anyway,
but still though, that was it. Trash talking gone bad 1-on-1. And I was trash talking to Jesse Palmer, beating my chest a couple plays before that. It's a good clip in there too. I think in one of the little reunion things, like me beating my chest, talking real noise, and I gave up a touchdown probably about 2 or 3 plays after that. Yeah. But that was the game that I came out way too hyped, like too much emotion. Like Fred was the emotional player, Dave. I didn't play off emotion. If I played off emotion, I would give off too much energy at the beginning of the game, and I couldn't do that. Like if I don't know how Fred now, I don't know how those dudes played off that much emotion like that.
Well, I practiced it. That's why I talk trash all day in practice.
Yeah, true.
I never forget the first game I talked trash in. I was about to die out there because I was winning.
Yeah, right.
I was like, man, I got to figure out how I can do this all game.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't no only way I can do it is practice it. So that's why, and that's why I did kind of get underneath the skin of coaches sometimes because I trash talk in the locker room, in the weight room. Johnny Long used to catch a lot of it because I knew he wasn't going to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I talked trash and talked mean to all of them because I was trying to get myself in shape to be able to do it the entire game. I need to be able to talk the whole game and not shut up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
I had to be able to do it the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrate 98 brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company. Go to tncidercompany.com. Use the promo code HAT to get some free swag with any purchase. You can get the cider shipped almost anywhere in the United States in 30 seconds. I'm going to throw something out there to Dwayne and Fred and see if they agree with me. While there will never be a Tennessee football team quite like that 98 team, I'm going to share that in 30 seconds. Celebrate 98 brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company.
A hard cider that's easy to enjoy, one that's crafted to perfection. You need Tennessee Cider Company. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. With a selection of ciders free to sample, all it takes is one taste. Visit tncidercompany.com for more information, as well as to shop our ciders and merchandise online. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
Dwayne's going to be right back with us. Here he comes, and look at that.
Bam.
There he is, right there. Press coverage. Here's my take. Nowadays, with the transfer portal, you can leave if things aren't going your way. The fact that there's not going to be guys banding together like you did on Sundays with cookouts because the cafeteria was closed, and Fred's told me a lot about those stories.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think college football teams ever again will be bonded like you guys were at that time. It's become a little bit professional.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally think what you guys have in those bonds are more valuable than any dollar amount. Those are my thoughts. What do you think?
Oh, good man. Good topic. I mean, I wouldn't trade the bonds that I have. I wouldn't trade the bonds that I built over the years. But boy, being the number 4 rated player in the country, that's probably about a good cool meal in NIL deals right now. I mean,
yeah.
So the reality of it, I mean, the bonds that we built, like, no, they're priceless. Like you can't put a dollar figure on the bond that Fred and I have and do all that stuff. But the game has changed so much, and what we built. I'm excited for the era and with the way it's going right now, I mean, it's different. I mean, it's definitely different from the traditional stuff that it's. I mean, times change, and we being fans. Like I'm a fan now. I mean, I'm a fan now, alumni. I have to change with the times and embrace it. I mean, if the transfer portal was available in 1996, would I stay at Tennessee? And I mean, who knows? Like, I mean, you don't really know, but I'm thankful for the bonds that we built at Tennessee, the relationships that I have, the brotherhoods that I have. Like, I wouldn't trade that for anything, but it's hard for me to compare the era of what these guys are dealing with now, because social media, all the distractions that they have, like, I mean, gosh, if we would have had all that stuff, we wouldn't have fielded a team. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, let's be realistic. Like, I can't lie. I mean, we'd have had a hard time fielding a team. So, I mean, I take my hats off to what these kids have to go through, the distractions that I wouldn't want to have to make the decisions that some of these young fellas have to deal with now.
Yeah.
I definitely think you guys deserved back then to get paid, and guys do now. It feels a little bit different.
I mean, it's professional. I mean, that's the one thing about, not to change the topic, but to get back to let Fred answer that. But like for me, that's what I didn't understand when I got to the Cowboys. I didn't understand that it was no longer a childhood game that I grew up playing. You could see a little bit of that at Tennessee, the professionalism starting a little bit when I was there in the late 90s. But when I got to the pros, I didn't understand that this is a true profession. And these kids now are having to understand that at an early age, the professionalism side of it, that they are a business at 18 years old. And those are things that Fred and we didn't have to deal with. You know what I mean? So it's a little different. I'll let you answer that, Fred. My bad.
It's different, too, because you don't have to struggle as much like we did. I think that struggle brought our bonds closer, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's a great point.
Nobody had anything. So you did have to lean on each other. You know what I mean? And if I had $1 million and my DBs, everybody on the squad is not happy or not eating well, hey man, we gonna eat anyway. I got $1 million. Let's go. We good. But we didn't have anything. Yeah. And that was not just the defensive back room. That was the linebackers. That was offensive linemen. That was running backs. That was everybody. Nobody really had anything. So you had to kind of lean on each other. Those putting $5 in here, $10 in here to do a cookout, hey man, that built character, but it also built chemistry. Because you knew you was gonna get at least a piece of chicken or a hot dog.
Right, true, right.
Everybody was gonna laugh and joke together. And you also hung around with each other. But
and that's what I was saying about even like going back to the pros, like people when you start putting professionalism into stuff, the locker room changed. Yeah, I mean, I know coming in as a second round pick. I mean, I signed for $1 million. Those guys that stars on the team that didn't make that, so they're looking at me funny, looking like, oh, this dude got 2 cars before he even played it down and do all that. And these are grown men with animosity like that. So imagine you're telling 18 to 23-year-old kids to start navigating money, do all this. Man, it's different times now. It's different times now. I'm glad I don't have to deal with it.
Exactly. And you know, the one thing, this may sound crazy, but we've had this conversation. At some point, they're going to need to have a general manager. Because you got to manage money, you got to manage players, and then some of these guys are going to require a certain amount of money at some point. At some point, there's going to be an offensive talent that's going to say, my starting number is $1 million.
Yeah.
It's going to happen at some point.
I think it's pretty
close. That's happening now.
Yeah. I'm curious with social media. What player might have been on the 98 team, and maybe it's Fred, have been caught in a bad situation on social media?
Social media back then, if we had it back then.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't have it, and I'm a little bit older than you guys, but I was a withering idiot in my 20s.
I don't know. I don't know if we have a starting defense minus maybe Darwin Walker.
Yeah, Darwin. Yeah. It'd have been rough.
And maybe Deion.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and we weren't bad. It was just we were just. I mean, it's just kind of doing college stuff. Yeah, just doing
College
college
students.
stuff. Yeah, just doing college stuff.
Another reason why I don't think there'll never be another us is the fact that if you go back and you look at the defense and look how fast we were, from tackles, from defensive tackles to defensive ends, linebackers, and secondary. Hey man, I put our speed up against anybody now.
Yeah, that would.
I'll put our speed up from 1998 up against any team.
Top to bottom. Yeah, top to bottom.
Now.
Yes. Yeah, top to bottom.
I got no argument with that. Well, Dwayne, we know you're in South Florida. What keeps you busy nowadays? Real estate, and you've got a son that is starting to get a college interest. Kind of talk about what you're up to nowadays for those that don't know.
Man, just real estate. Yeah, just real estate. Just managing a couple properties in Florida, one in Tampa, and then one down here in South Florida, and then going back and forth being a full-time dad. So my daughter's a senior. She's going into her senior year at UT, and then my son is going to a senior year at high school here in Dallas. And stuff. So that's it, just being a full-time dad, making sure the kids got everything they need and doing that, and just watching them grow up and turn into their own young people. So my daughter works in recruiting over there at UT, so she's in the family. So it's I try to not ask her about some insider tips and stuff. So it's pretty fun, man. It's pretty fun just being a dad and just getting a chance to see the kids grow up.
Yeah, if you could just give me, if she works in the recruiting office, if I could get her number after this, that would be great.
She don't know anything. I asked her about some of the recruits and stuff like that. She was like, Dad, I don't know anybody. I just sign them up and do all this stuff. And I'm like, I need to know this stuff. Like, I need to know the inside scoop. But she's not giving away anything. Yeah, she's worse than one of these coaches now, trying to get some information out of her. I told her I needed Coach Heupel's number. She gave me a third degree. Like, for what? What do you need his number for? What do you need to talk to him for? I'm like, dang, like, you know what I mean? So no, she's not giving away any info right now.
Fair enough. Fred, anything left that you would like to add? Just I've been looking forward to talking with you guys for a long time as we started this series. This has been one of the ones I've been most looking forward to.
No, I'm good with what we've done so far, man. And we talked about a lot, and this, everything I wanted to talk about in this interview, we've done. So I'm good.
All right,
Dwayne, can't thank you enough. Glad to know things are going well. Can't believe you have college age kids and I have college age kids, and we both have white beards. But somehow that happened.
Yes.
But God bless you, young man, and thanks for making the time. And Fred, as always, thank you for making all this possible. Again, it's Celebrate 98. It's brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company, TNciderCompany.com, TNciderCompany.com. Use the promo code HAT. Get some free swag with any order. You can get the cider shipped pretty much anywhere in the United States of America. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.